it's a pretty screwed up time for Davey. He's got serious drug problems that nobody knows about, I guess, maybe Davey. All I know is that Davey gets injured, or supposedly injured. I never bought that he was injured. He supposedly got injured with a staph infection and went home, probably about the first week of July, and was off the whole summer. He was just gone. And it was too bad because I only just found out that we were working. And we had I think it was the same weekend we wrestled in Binghamton. I know I wrestled Davey. Vince had we had a match. They put us together just to kind of get a feel each other out match before Wembley. I'm thinking it was probably middle of July. I know it was just before Davey went home, but maybe it was even June. But I know I wrestled him, and it was awful. Our timing was wrong. It was a real struggle. And I remember when I came back, and Vince looked at me when I came past him. He said, "I hope it's going to be better than that at SummerSlam." And because I think we had talked earlier that night about we were going to go on last at Wembley. Now we were going to be the last match on the card, and I remember telling him, I said, "Nobody will top us. It's going to be the best match, guaranteed, on the card." And so then we had this abortion out there. And when I walked past Vince, he was like, "I hope it's going to be better than that at SummerSlam." And I was like, "I hope so too." I don't know what, and sometimes that happens when you work with each other for the first time. You try too hard, or you're both too tired. It was at a TV taping, so we got a lot of, you do promos all day, and you can be really distracted, and it's not a good way to judge how you're going to do. So I know for me, I got real serious about the match right away. Once I knew that we were wrestling, I saw it as the opportunity to deliver the greatest match ever. That I could, if Davey followed me and listened to me, I could take him through, and we could have the best match maybe ever. We could really steal a show and really make our mark in the business. And so I would train and tan in the tanning beds, and I remember I would go in the tanning bed and I would lie down and I would envision the whole match. The tie-up, the first tie-up, take over to the rest, every spot that followed, what would come up next. And if I ran into a wall, we're like, okay, what would I do next? And I'd think about it and I'd come up with the idea. And then, anyway, I gradually kind of put an entire match together in my head. And every time I laid down, I could start it from the beginning. It's the identical match that you watch. I mean, it's the match. And I remember going, it's perfect. I got this perfect match. I don't need to change anything. I just need to tell Davey. And I would call Davey. I called him for the whole month of August. I called him every day. And I could never get him. He was always out or never returned my calls. I talked to my sister Diana. He had some real bad drug problems at the time and was totally out of reach. And I think even when he left...
How much is Diana aware of?
I think she's pretty much got to be aware of all of it. I know that Davey, when he got on the plane, he had been up for almost 48 hours, hadn't been to sleep. He'd been on a coke binge and then barely got on the flight that flew to London. And I hadn't talked. I called and called and called, and I couldn't get an answer, couldn't get him to call me, and I kept thinking, I don't know what the hell he's doing. He should talk to me just so I can tell him what's going on, and I'm trying to help him, I'm trying to make him. The match is all about putting him over. And I remember when I saw him in the dressing room in Wembley, we had to do interviews the day before. All the interviews, the one about I think I said something about London Castle or something like that on my promo. That was all done the Saturday. They're all done the day before the promos for the show, the SummerSlam. Okay. And I was so mad at him, and I pulled him aside, and I said, I've been trying to call you for 2 months. Where the hell you been? And then he just confessed to me that he hadn't slept since he got there, and he was a wreck, and he hadn't trained, he hadn't lifted weight, and he was out of shape, and he was a wreck. And he confessed to me that he was going to stink the next day. Then he was going to, and I started telling him the match. I said, this is what I want to do. And I started to sit down. I said, and then we're going to do this and this. And I told him the whole match. And he was like, he knew that I had finally, I was like Beethoven. I brought him the music sheet, and he was like, he knew it was going to be this great match, but I don't think he thought he could do it. But I laid it all out to him, and I went over and over with him that night in the dressing room until he left and went home, went to his hotel, and I got there the next day, and we went over it and went over it and went over it, and even then, as soon as we tied up in the ring, I remember, I think it was the very first spot we did. I took him over in a side headlock or something, and he goes, "I'm fucked. I'm fucked." He couldn't remember anything. He was like blank. And that's one of the only matches where you see Bret Hart talking on it, where you never catch Bret Hart talking in his matches, but you will catch me in Wembley. And it's like, because I had such a great match in my head, and I had to communicate it to him, and a lot of times you just had to call it, and you had to just, which I hate doing. I hate wrestlers that I see him talking. And to me, it's an automatic fail for that. But with Davey, I had to do it, and I did a pretty good job of masking it for most of it. But
were you confident that you could pull this off, especially the day before when you see him and he's telling you he's in no condition? Are you shitting?
No, I was furious at him. I couldn't believe it. There's a chance of his lifetime, and I'm willing to. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to launch him as high as I can. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to get Davey, make sure he's, as far as I know, he's getting the belt and he's going to get this big push. And it's going to be maybe he's going to be the next champion. Maybe this is his final, I was all gung-ho for him, and I really wanted to see him rise to the occasion. And you know what? He did rise to the occasion. That's the thing about it, is I tell all this to people and they go, oh, so they lose a little respect for Davey, and fair enough, you can. But the truth is that he sucked it up, and he did every spot. He did everything he should. And at the very end, I paced him well enough, and I can remember he's power slamming me at the end, press slamming me over his head, and suplexing me. And, he got everything done, and I take great credit. I think it was my greatest match in the sense that I carried someone for about 42 minutes of a 45-minute match. And you can barely tell. Maybe only now you can tell, but I think that's why it makes it more important to watch, is because, he was a train wreck that day, and for a long time. And I know in Davey's case, he's always said it was the greatest match he ever had, and I think it was one of the greatest matches of all time, for sure.